Assalamualaikum everyone. This is another start of our new session, Bootcamp 2021, and today we will start Cloud Development Kit.
Before we start,
So,
Anish,
yeah.
let me check. I can't see you on Facebook. Let me check.
Okay, but I can see there is a live phase on Facebook. You can see there is a on the screen there is a
Yes, it's saying live. I'm not sure in which group you have connected. Let me see.
it's a Penacloud AI IoT Blockchain and Quantum Bootcamp 2021. Is that what?
Yes, you are right. Got it.
Okay. So, sir, you can go ahead.
Let me give.
Do I need to share anything from my side?
Just give me a minute.
I would request everyone to please mute yourself.
Hello, everyone. What I'm going to do is basically share my screen, share my desktop. Can everybody see my desktop?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I would request everyone to please mute your mic as well as your video, so you can have a better streaming, because screencasting is live. So when you need to speak, you can unmute yourself and keep your camera on. So please mute yourself. It is very tough to mute everyone. For example, Ata Mustafa and Muhammad Naveed Khan, I would request you to please mute yourself.
Now everybody can see my screen?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now we have to understand something. What has happened is that in the last year and a half, we have been, Anish, in a time machine.
Okay.
In a number of different ways. In our private lives, we have gone back 100 years or maybe 500 years when there used to be widespread pandemics. But in technology space, what we have achieved in 2020, basically, I think, Anish, you have to mute everybody. Then I will unmute myself.
Okay, fine. Just give me a minute. Okay, everyone, I have mute everyone forcefully. So if you need to speak up, please raise his hand, so I'll unmute him. Otherwise, every time I have to face a lot of problem. Sarzia, can you speak?
Yes, let's go forward.
Okay.
Now, what I was saying is that we have been living in a time machine. In some ways, we have gone back. But as far as technology is concerned, especially cloud computing and blockchain, we have gone forward 10 years in 1 year. Now, we have to understand that this course is most probably the most advanced in the world right now. I'm not just saying it because I'm teaching it, because it is merging a lot of different technologies together. And we are entering a new kind of world where there on the server side, there will be two kind of servers programs that are being run. One is cloud computing. The other one is basically decentralized systems, basically blockchain.
Okay.
In the first portion of our class, in the next few months, we are going to cover cloud computing and blockchain both. And then we are going to merge it with AI, and then that's how it goes. From now on, Anish, the problem is that we are going to, it's not a problem, but just stating the fact that we are going to teach this course everywhere, a single course with different specializations. This is going to be called a certified unicorn developer. Unicorn is basically developers which are unique and have a diverse set of skills. The only issue is that right now we do not have teachers to teach this course. So Anish bhai, you will have to take the lead because there is nobody else available. And Shahrukh bhai will have to take the lead, and Inam bhai and others, because there is nobody else. I can only think of one person who can teach this course right now, which is Zishan. To some extent, 70% of the course. Others, including me, cannot teach more than 30-40% of the course. We have to study hard. And I never worry about whether I know a stuff or Anish knows stuff, or our co-teachers know the stuff before teaching, because when the pressure comes, we learn. Anish bhai, is that right? When we have to learn, you have to learn.
Yes, sir. And if the very good and very valuable thing from my side is that that learning this type of cloud computing, decentralized system, as well as blockchain is very, very necessary for everyone. Even he is a software developer, or he is a DevOps engineer, or a system engineer, or system solution provider, everyone. Even in future, I believe that everyone from the business domain, like chartered accountants, must have at least basic knowledge how blockchain works and how cloud computing done. If I could remember, in business and accounting and management, everyone take basic computing, I mean information technology or fundamental of computer as a core course. But I believe that course would be changed, and it becomes a cloud computing is a part of that fundamental course. So before proceeding to this cloud computing, I have collected some questions in the Discord chat and other things. So you can start. I will ask you a question, or I can start asking you some questions. So you can start whatever you prefer.
Let's start from the prescribed syllabus, and then whenever you want, you can intervene. And the thing is, anybody who wants to ask a question, please. We are going to use all of you. You are right now our basic, the first class we are teaching in this syllabus. So therefore, most of you will become teachers in our system as we go forward in different cities of Pakistan. And we are about to launch something, Operation Unicorn, on Monday. And hopefully things will go forward. Let's start. The first thing is the comparison of centralized, decentralized, and distributed systems. What is a centralized system? Take a look at this diagram. There is one server and other computers are basically connected to it. What does it say? A centralized system are systems that use client-server architecture, where one or more clients nodes are directly connected to central server. This is the most common used type of system. Right now, if there are some people who are already programmers, most probably they are developers of centralized system. What they do is basically they write a server, and they write at this stage, they write a client which is run on browser, and it connects, but it doesn't have to run on browser. The clients connect to a server, and therefore this is called a client server system. This is an example of a what do you call a centralized system. Now you have to understand something. What are the examples of how do the centralized servers are made? Right now, it can be in Node.js. That's what we are doing in this class. It can be in Ruby on Rails. Somebody can write Ruby on Rails. The client side is
Python,
usually
Java.
yes, Java, and all the rest of the stuff. On the client side, most of the time it is the browser, but it can also be a desktop system. Now let's move to the second one.
So, sir, currently most of the organization using that client server type of system where we have a centralized server and the application running on that server. There would be one or two, and everyone connect using a web interface or a desktop interface to the that server and keep working.
Okay.
And the same, okay.
Now, I'm not going to tell you guys this thing. I have just highlighted on my screen that centralized system, how does it scale? What do you mean by scale? As more users come in, can we make the server performance stable? Otherwise, what will happen is that as more users come in, as more users come in, otherwise the server will go down because it's too much loaded. Therefore, the question is, are centralized servers scalable? Let's see. Only vertical scaling on central server is possible. Horizontal scaling will contradict the single central unique characteristic of the system on a single central entity. Who is going to tell me what does it mean?
Vertical scaling by it means that we will extend the slave nodes or the dependent systems of the whole network of the network of system. But in horizontal scaling, we are talking about having peers of the master nodes, means there are more than one decision making centers, which is not possible in the current centralized system, because this will demolish the whole concept of the centralized system. At the moment, in the centralized system, the idea is just to scale it when we need more worker system or worker nodes, but not the master node or the node. In horizontal, we'll need to change this concept. We will need to make.
Faisal, I think you are saying the right things, but you are telling us in a complicated way that I suspect some of you will not understand it. Could you repeat it?
Okay. In vertical scaling, we are talking about increasing the number of the slave nodes, means the nodes which are taking the instructions from the master node and following the instructions. But in horizontal scaling, we are talking about making peers, making equivalent of the master nodes. It means that there is no centralized node at all. So that concept will negate the centralized system, which we centralized server system. So that we are talking about that's where the concept of distributed networks will come.
Thank you, Faisal. I think you are almost there, but not there. Somebody else?
Sir, a vertical scaling would be like increasing the RAM or the CPU processing of the same server. And horizontal scaling would be like having more than one computers or servers with different CPUs and RAMs.
Perfect, Amar. Could you repeat
Yeah.
it slowly? Could you repeat it slowly so that everybody understands it?
Okay, vertical scaling would be like having the same server, but upgrading its RAM capacity, its CPU processing capacity, and all that, like making the server bigger. So it would be vertical. Bigger is like vertical. And horizontal is like having multiple servers spreading horizontally, and we're distributing the CPU and RAM capacity in different servers horizontally.
Exactly. Now, what, Amar, could you tell us a little bit about yourself? Where are you located and what is your background?
Sir, I work in Malaysia. I'm basically from network engineering side, and I'm doing these courses with PIIC to move towards DevNet, DevOps, and things like that that relate to my networking and at the same time development side. So that
You made me very, you
Yeah,
made
so
me
that
very
I-
happy. You made me very happy that you are connecting from Malaysia. How is Malaysia as a country? Do you like it?
Yes, sir. I do like living here and working here. The rest is all good.
I've heard most of the Malaysians are very good people.
Yes, most of them. But when you go to the government side,
Of course, bad people are everywhere.
then they are a little bit biased towards Pakistanis. One thing I would really like to share is when I was new here, everyone asked me, "Where are you from?" I said Pakistan, and the answer that I used to get was, "I thought all engineers were from India." The person asking me this question would say, "I thought all engineers are from India." So I was silent for most of the time because what I thought was, just wait a few years and then we'll let you know where engineers come from.
Yes.
I say that to
But
myself.
the thing is, I really appreciate the Indians. They have created a space for themselves in the world global economy, especially in the IT field. Even in America, Indians have created a reputation for themselves. And instead of being jealous or anything, we should appreciate them and compete with them. May the
Yes,
best man
that's
win.
my point of view.
There must be some sportsman spirit.
Sir, my point
whoever-
is sorry for cutting you down. My point is
Uh-huh.
2 or 3 years back, we did not have the opportunities of learning that we have now with PIIC platform and with platform like this. I personally, when 4 or 5 years back, I used to search for things to study, for resources to study what I wanted to study. And now I have them.
Thank you so much.
Thank
All
you
right,
so much.
let's move forward. Inshallah, we will start classes in Malaysia
Okay, thank you, sir.
and you will lead it. Where there is a will, there is a way.
Inshallah.
Okay, now what Amar has mentioned is that vertical scaling is that you increase the machine capacity. For example, increase the CPUs, increase the RAM, or buy a bigger machine, whatever. And horizontal scaling is that instead of one machine, maybe you use 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In a centralized system, that is not possible because that goes against the basic concept. You can only scale vertically. Therefore, for example, most of the people right now, if you have written a server in PHP, Node.js, Java, the old technologies, the monolithic app, it is not very scalable. And the world we are getting into, it has no meaning. Maybe for small companies who have developing an internal system, it will make sense. But going forward, we have to adopt, let's see. So therefore, centralized system are the story of the past. It will still be used. Client server architecture will be used, but very limited way, very small companies and very
Yes, sir.
small application.
Yes, sir. Sir, I want to add something that in centralized system, the challenge is that when we need more resources, immediately you cannot have that resources. For example, in certain conditions and certain time when you need resources, for example, in Ramzan, and retailer need more computing resources, it cannot scale its system, is a centralized system immediately, especially for a temporary time. He has to buy a full flag, a larger system, and move his existing application to the new system. But after the requirement for larger computing resources eliminate, or then in a usual time, in a regular time, the information, the resources does not need, it could not be scaled back. So this is, I guess, the challenge of scalability from my experience and my point of view, that in centralized system, you cannot upgrade your system immediately and on ad hoc basis whenever you need, and you cannot be scaled down again when your need is finished. So this is the very considerable thing, which I guess that Sarzia will tell us in a while, that how cloud can solve this issue. Over to Zia.
Yes. Is Shahrukh there? Has he joined us?
Yes, sir.
I
I'm here.
don't. Yeah. Okay, Shahrukh. Thank you. I'm making you co-host.
Because let's move to the next one. I just wanted to see whether our whole team is placed so that we can have a Shahrukh discussion on different issues.
Yes, sir. Yeah, sure.
Now, I've highlighted something. Can't scale up vertically after a certain limit, because you can only increase the RAM to a certain extent. You can only increase the CPU. You can buy a very good computer, but there's a limit. So therefore, the centralized system, that is the problem. Why did people use advantages of centralized system? Easy to physically secure, smooth and elegant personal experience, dedicated resource, all the resources, memory, most cost efficient for small systems up to a certain limit. Quick and updates are possible. Developers love it because you can update the server whenever you want. Easy detachment of nodes from the system. You can disconnect the node and get a new machine or connect it. Now, this is the problem with centralized systems. Shahrukh, would you like to basically summarize what are the advantages, disadvantages of centralized system as we go forward, before we go forward?
So the basic advantages for a centralized section is that we have a control over our whatever the system we are going to install it. Whatever type of thing we are desired, we can place as per our requirement. As far hardware is concerned, not about talking about the software part or application perspective. Secondly, the main disadvantage goes because if any time upgrade is required, we have to invest our money, which cannot be returned back if we have to degrade, as Anis has said, because if we have invested some amount of money for short interval of time, that is a chunk of a money or budget increase to whatever the system we are running it. These are the point I would like to add.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
And just to add something very realistic, that our vaccine registration system, the national vaccine registration, is down just because I'm just envision, or I guess I'm just guessing that it is because of the overload, and the same thing that Sarzia had mentioned, that this is not scalable. So that's why it's down. So I guess this is because that it's using some sort of centralized approach. Over to Sarzia.
Okay. Now, thank you, Anis. Now, the second one is the decentralized system. It is so new that most people will have difficulty in understanding it. I understand. It has taken me a year or two to understand it, but we'll try. In a centralized system, every node makes its own decision. It's a peer-to-peer system where, let's assume I, Anis, and Shahrukh are on a decentralized system. There will be 3 computers connected, and all 3 of the computers will talk to each other and basically connect to each other, and each node will make its own decision and inform everybody that I'm taking this decision. The final behavior of the system is the aggregation of decisions taken of the individual nodes. There is no single entity that receives and responds to requests. Now this is very funny. Anish, there's no single system where you can send a request and it will give you a response.
So it's really amazing.
Now, this architecture, first
Sir, I have a
example, yes, Anish.
request that can you share that link to our chat so everyone could able to open it if we willing.
Yes, go ahead.
So
I will copy. I will
yeah.
copy.
Okay. The chat window. Yeah, that's great, sir.
Thank you so much for pointing it out. Now, this centralized system, sorry, decentralized system. The first example is Bitcoin. I am assuming that most of you have not programmed for a decentralized system. Let's assume the second one example is Ethereum blockchain. In Ethereum blockchain, there are more than a few thousand nodes, Anish, which are connected to each other. And every one of the system is making their own decisions. And in the end, the accumulated state of all the system decides what the system is doing. There are thousands of nodes in Bitcoin and Ethereum, both.
Okay, sir. This is great. It means that every computer would involve in this type of processing.
Yes. Every node.
Every node.
I think Ashar raised his hand. Go ahead, please.
So what if one of the nodes or a few of the nodes go offline?
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter at all. They are continuously going online and offline.
So it means, sir, that when they go offline, when they go online back, they would be synced themselves.
Yes, exactly.
It's a very Ashar, is a very common scenario. It also used in cloud computing and other way around. For example, there is a primary and secondary and multiple nodes. So when there are multiple nodes performing processing, if one node goes down, other nodes keep processing and keep working. When the down nodes goes back, it starts syncing itself, and after a time, it's sync properly and start participating in processing and decision making.
Okay. Now let me give you an example. Characteristic. Lack of a global clock. Every computer has an own clock. Every node. Multiple central units. Dependent on failure of components. One critical node failure causes a lot of system to fail, not the whole system. It may be the segment, just like the internet. If a particular network fails, it does not mean internet will fail. Scaling, vertical scaling is possible. Each node can add resources to itself to increase the performance of the entire system. The architecture is peer-to-peer. Limitations of the decentralized may lead to problem of coordinating the enterprise level. I suspect this is going to go away as we move forward, because the problem is right now this is so new. So therefore, there are some problems. It is not suitable for small systems. There is no way to regulate a node on the system. That's why people love decentralized system that no government in the world needs. or no middleman can control a decentralized system. Nobody can control it. If a particular government says, for example, Chinese government says that it is going to ban Ethereum blockchain, they can't do it. They may shut down all the Chinese node, which will be difficult, but other countries will keep on running the system. Now, what are the disadvantages? Difficult to achieve global big tasks because there is no central chain of command, no regulatory oversight, but some people will love it. Everything is achieved by consensus. Difficult to know which node is failed. Difficult to know which node responded because there are so many of them. Now you can't apply the same. Different systems have different characteristics. It depends on your problem which you are trying to solve. Cryptocurrency is an application of decentralized systems. Blockchain is a cyber currency, cryptocurrency, smart contracts, which are not mentioned in this article, but we'll learn later on when we have completed this thing, what do you call, our cloud computing, we are going to decentralized systems later on. Now, any questions? I suspect there are no questions because most of you don't understand what the hell I talked about.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's possible because they don't know the other side of this thing. Na? They never, most of our people never use decentralized system and even the cloud system. Most of us is very much fond of, I would say, fond of client server and desktop things. I mean, they develop application. Yeah, most of the time.
Yes, therefore, most of the developers don't have any clue about decentralized system. But
yes, sir.
With God's help, before we complete this course, and if we are still alive, because the conditions are bad in right now, corona-wise, if we are still alive and a variant of the blockchain is, yes, Asadullah, you raised your hand, please ask your question.
Decentralized system.
Asad, go ahead.
Sir, can we assume that torrent is decentralized system?
I didn't hear you. Please repeat the question. I think Asad is having some problems with his mic. We will move forward.
Asad, you can write your question in the chat. I'll speak on behalf of you. While we can go ahead, one question is also available in the chat that somebody asked, which is more secure way to deal such things? I mean, decentralized system, is it enough secure?
Yes. In a decentralized system, through encryption, they make sure nobody can basically play with the system. Can you imagine? Nobody has been able to hack the Bitcoin blockchain or the Ethereum blockchain up to now. And you know, Bitcoin is around $40,000-$50,000. People are trying very hard to hack it.
So there's another question. Is torrent a decentralized system?
I don't know much about torrent, but most probably.
Torrent is a decentralized system, but it is controlled by some providers which manage peers and Cedar, which is called Cedar and Leecher and everyone. So for torrent, we need something that that control that leecher and seeder and so many things. So you can say that torrent is also a decentralized but a semi-decentralized system, because someone has to control and connect leecher that consuming the data and the seeder that providing the data. Once they are connected, they could start transferring data each other. One more thing is that torrent does not follow any centralized or you can say similar set of encryption. So that's why we cannot say that it's a equivalent of our blockchain style. And the last thing in the torrent is that it does not care about that the data has been reached to all the available nodes or not. For example, this is possible that if you are a seeder, some data has been reached to you and some data is not reached to the other. But it's simply a transfer of data thing. It does not work like a blockchain. Over to Sarzia.
Okay. Now, what basically Anish mentioned, that torrent is basically, I know for sure it's a peer-to-peer system. But whether it's truly, we may call it a semi-decentralized system. Anish, am I right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now let's move to distributed system. In a decentralized system, every node makes its, in a decentralized system, every node makes its own decision. The final behavior of the system is the aggregate of the decisions of the individual node. There is no single entity that receives and responds to a request. I think in this article, they gave a very good example, but I think there is a mistake in this article. This paragraph is wrong. They are still discussing the decentralized system, not a distributed system. Look at the diagram of the distributed system. In a distributed system, all the nodes collectively. In a decentralized system, each node decides for itself. In a distributed system, collectively, you decide. For example, Google search engine system is a distributed system. Each request is worked by hundreds of computers which crawl the web and return the relevant results. To the user, the Google appears to be one system, but it actually is multiple computers working together to accomplish one single task. So when you make a query in a distributed system like Google, basically one system does not answer your question, does not calculate the result. Thousands of computers simultaneously, in some cases 2,000 computers when you make a query. The same will happen in serverless system, which we are going to learn from next week. The number of different nodes work together to solve your problem. Scaling. Both horizontal and vertical scaling is possible. So therefore, we go forward. There will be two kinds of systems. One is cloud computing, which is distributed system. The other one is decentralized system, which is blockchains. There will be two kinds of servers, two kinds of server architectures that will be used extensively. Centralized will be used, but in a limited way, because we need scalability. Architecture of a distributed system, it's also a peer-to-peer. It is also client server, because you make a request in Google server. And now, what are the limitations of distributed system? Difficult to design and debug algorithms of this system, because there are thousands of systems working together. How do you basically debug? Difficult for a node to get the view of the system. What is happening? Some nodes failed. What happened? What does this mean? low latency than centralized systems. Because what it's saying is distributed systems have low latency because of high geographical spread, hence leading to less time to get a response. What are the disadvantages? Difficult to achieve consensus because data is kept in a number of different nodes. So we have to find a way to synchronize them and create a consensus. Conventional way of logging events by absolute time they occur is not possible here because number of things. Cluster computing, grid computing, cloud computing are the examples of distributed systems. Organizations like Google, Apple, Facebook are using it. Now, I want some people, and after that, Anis and Shahrukh, to basically summarize what we have learned so far.
Sir, from my side, what I have learned that in the distributed system, there is a certain challenges because in the distributed cell, a lot of things very much similar with the decentralized system. In the distributed system, we have challenges. The first challenge is who is going to control the whole thing, who is going to lead the certain thing, because nobody is a controller. So there is probably the chances that something becomes wrong and something becomes out of control. So there are some challenges. Otherwise, distributed system is quite good because it does not have any load on a single system, and scalability and sharing of resources is very good in distributed or decentralized system. This is what I have understand.
Shahrukh?
As far as my concern, to summarize this thing out, there are three types of systems: centralized, decentralized, and distributed. Centralized is basically used for people who are starting up the what is application they want to use and trying to invest their own, regardless of depending on some other module or system of thing. As far as decentralization is concerned, it is basically a type of network or in which entire system goes to on a network which is much secure and can be scalable to certain extent. So the decentralization goes mainly the most famous or reliable things going cryptocurrencies are on the decentralized system model. As far as distribution system is concerned, the advantages goes in it can be scalable vertically and horizontally in both side of areas. Secondly, as a process is concerned, that each data is processed on a multiple nodes, so the resultant on a process time or resources are much more as compared to centralized system or the other one. So the distribution has the advantages of both sides, centralized as far as concerned is concerned, decentralized. But as a combination, we can say distribution is favorable for many cases. As far as if we want a secure network or centralized, decentralized must be much better.
Very nice, Shahrukh. Faisal bhai, you had a question?
Yeah, I was thinking about edge computing. In IoT, edge computing, are we talking about a combination of distributed and decentralized system? Because some of the decisions IoT edge server is going to take on its own, but for some decisions it is going to be connected with a larger cloud distributed system. So is it going to be a hybrid of concept of that?
I think edge computing combined with cloud computing, an extended distributed system is not a decentralized system. Because all the decisions are made, some decisions are made by the edge, some by the cloud servers and so on.
I want to add, when if we want some decision be taken, we will prefer for the distribution as compared to decentralization. So for IoT, decentralization will be much preferred method as compared to decentralization, because we have to take decisions. So there some centralized controlling for any decision.
Okay. Now, anybody else who wants to summarize?
Sound concept. May I add, sir?
Yes, my friend.
Okay. There are three types today we have learned. One is centralized system, one is decentralized, and third one is distributed system. So in a centralized system, what we learn, it's a client server architecture. It means one server which is located on a single data center or one place where you are getting client and server responses from the browser. It is going to one server and getting a response and request kind of a thing. The problem there is maybe single source of power. All the data is centralized in a single place. So in case of it goes down or something happened to that, you will not be able to retrieve it easily unless the backup and resiliencies are enabled. The second part is distributed one, which is the crypto base, which is like all our currencies which are using it. Majority cryptocurrencies are using it. So that is having a different data centers maybe, and they are working together in a peer-to-peer network, and they are computing the resources and dumping or syncing their data. So in case of one goes down, the other will take over, and you at least have the data and all those things available there. Each of them are having advantages and disadvantages because your data is available in an encrypted way to other servers. So this is one part. While in a centralized, you have all the data available on your data center. So that is one part. Third is the distributed one, in which, like as we learned about, that Apple and Google, they are using it, and in which we are sending a request to one server and they are calculating using a grid response. So it means you have a lot of machines to collectively work on and giving a response faster and faster. And the one thing which we learned about, which is scaling up and scaling down, horizontal scaling and vertical scaling. Vertical scale, horizontal scaling, normally in cloud computing, four things are important: compute, storage, network, which is, and the last one is memory. So four things you can upgrade in horizontal scaling. In a vertical scaling, you can increase those things as per your requirement, whether it's a cloud or in-house or in a data center. While in a horizontal scaling, you can scale out your system, adding multiple nodes in that. So these are the couple of things we learned today.
Very nicely said. Could you tell us more about yourself?
Sir, my name is Noman Siddiqui. I used to be your student in web technologies in Pakistan, and we started learning C# from you. And because of you, we learned C#, and we came to this. Now I'm in UAE, working as a project lead, like a project manager job. But before I was a programmer, and a couple of years back, I also do SharePoint development, K2, and still learning with you, sir.
Of
Cloud
course.
computing and those things.
All of us till the day we die, we will be learning. Noman, how is things in COVID situation in UAE?
So now it's improved a lot because of vaccination, and the government is very strict about in terms of wearing mask and the hefty penalties in terms if you're not wearing mask. So it is 1,500 cases tentatively are there, but still it's a controlled. Everything is now open, alhamdulillah, and still they are controlling it out.
Okay, thank you so much, Noman. Thank you, very nice of you. Now let's move forward to the next article. Blockchain, and because we have to complete a lot of articles.
Sir, while we
blockchain
are
is,
reading blockchain, one question from the chat is that nowadays price of blockchain is managed or influenced by some industry joint line like Elon Musk. So do you think that in future this type of things would hurt the progress of blockchain, or there would be some other sort of solutions exist?
the thing is, nobody is hectic. It's a social engineering.
Okay.
What Elon Musk is doing is social engineering. He's changing the minds of people so that they are motivated to buy. Who can stop that? If you want, for example, tomorrow a very beautiful actress tells you to buy Bitcoin or sell Bitcoin and you do it, or your wife tells you to, Anis,
Yeah,
how can I stop? How can
that's possible, sir.
That's what I'm saying. Technology cannot stop how people behave.
Okay, makes sense.
Elon Musk is not playing with the blockchain. Elon Musk is playing with the minds of the people. Any other
But
question?
slowly his influence is decreasing because crypto community is realizing that he is playing with our minds with a single.
Yes, basically. Let's move forward. As I mentioned, I just included this article because of one reason. Going forward, we are going to deal with cloud computing and blockchains. That is the decentralized system. That is the distributed system. Let me see if there's something specific. Let's go back to the down. Most of the things are the same. A cloud is something that we can gain access throughout the internet. It is cyber space where we can access the data online. On the other hand, blockchain is an encrypted system that uses different styles of encryption, has to store data in a protected database. The system distributes this data records over various nodes and forms a consensus on the position of data that contain. So therefore, in cloud computing, you can get access to the cloud from anywhere. But in a blockchain, it is an encrypted system. You go through different systems, which we are going to discuss later. Right now, it's too much for you. So data in the form are immutable in a blockchain. Now, this is a very important thing. Can anybody tell me what does it mean to be immutable?
Sir, immutable means that we cannot change the record once we have. We cannot change or delete once we have write it down on blockchain.
Yes. You can think of it as a holy grail. Holy grail, where once you have written, or you think of it as a stone tablet. Once you have written on it, nobody can change it. You can only, in a blockchain, you can only add record. You can not change a previous record. So, whereas the data residing in a cloud are mutable, that's not the case with blockchain. In a cloud, data can change. Blockchain does not provide any service, and it is a magnificent technology achievement that is decentralized. Distributed ledger that keeps a record of all the governance of digital assets. So basically, blockchain provides you a ledger where you can keep your records. On the other hand, cloud is a cloud computing service that provides service in three simple formats, such as, we have discussed this later, software as a service, platform as a service, infrastructure as a service. Data and existing in the cloud can be public or private, depends whether you want it to keep it public or not. Let's conclude this article. Both blockchain and cloud computing play a vital role in changes in enterprise work environment, and the way traditional computing works. Their emergence has not only gained momentum in the existing business infrastructure, but also changed the way in the virtual application is development, storage, online and service functions. Everything has changed. Now you are dealing with cloud computing. Before, you were dealing with centralized systems. Now you are dealing with cloud computing and as well as decentralized system, distributed computing, and both cloud computing, which is basically a distributed system, and as well as blockchain, which is a decentralized system. Now any questions? Any questions?
Sir, I have a question.
Yes, but
I have a question.
Sir,
Good.
if sir, someone.
Hello.
hello, you have to speak loudly.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I had a question. As we can't update any log, anything in our ledger within the blockchain. So what if we made any error, and how would we gonna resolve that? Like,
Could you repeat the question? Because I did not hear you, sorry.
yeah, my question was, as we can't update records in the blockchain, so how are we gonna like, if we have made some mistake, for example, if we were writing some smart
Oh,
contract,
I understand your question. What you are saying is that if we cannot change a record, so how are you, if something has to be updated, how are you going to do it? You have to create a new record.
yeah, okay, okay.
And Hunain, this is not a new thing. Think about that. It's a part of core accounting principle. For example, in the banking, nobody changed the record. For example, if you have, if the cashier add something negatively, it will create another entry that will reverse. For example, if there is a debit, it will credit.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
So
so in the accounting system, in the older time when the paper-based accounting exists, the ledger is not to be edited because it's not possible. Everybody using paper and pen. From such time, this is a very common practice that if you have by mistake add something in your account, you will definitely subtract in that particular account with the same amount. So that would happen. That would also happen in the blockchain. For example, if first of all, there's a very rare chance because there is a lot of nodes involved in the transaction. But if transaction has been made by mistake in a different amount, you will have to adjust with a new entry, as Sir Zia mentioned.
I think you, Anish, gave a very good example. In double entry bookkeeping, because I'm a professional accountant, professional myself, in double entry bookkeeping, you cannot change the entry you have already made. You can only add another entry. This concept is the same. Thank you, Anish bhai, for reminding me.
that answers my question. Thank you very much.
Now, look at this. Cloud computing as a service revenue. Basically, cloud computing is where servers are somewhere. There are thousands of servers. We are using them. Now, there are three kinds of things. Infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service. But software as a service, basically, we define ourselves. So therefore, we are not going to discuss that. It is roughly, it is growing 20% every year. It is going to be $1 trillion business. So therefore, we are betting on cloud computing as well as blockchains going forward. Now, let's see what are the three kinds of cloud computing. What is infrastructure as a service? Because now this has been around for a while, I'll expect some of my students to know this. Somebody can explain infrastructure as a service? Anybody?
Yeah, I think the very much example we know is as
Please,
we.
sorry to interrupt, but please speak a little louder.
Okay, can you understand me now?
Yes.
Okay, I was giving example of as we use the infrastructure of AWS for our deployments and all stuff. And that is an example of infrastructure as a service. AWS is providing its infrastructure, and whenever we need to like have more resources, we are just upgrading our packages we are taking from the service. So
Basically, what cloud computing started with infrastructure as a service. Basically, people used to create their virtual machines and run it on the server, basically on a rented server provided by somebody else. So therefore, infrastructure as a service basically provides you the means to run your previously written code, which was centralized servers, on the cloud architecture. And if you want two machines, you basically got two virtual machines and so on. So therefore, it was a transition phase. It's still being used by a lot of different companies. But I think as we move forward, we are going to go to the higher level, which is platform as a service, is the next layer up, as well as the underlying storage network. It will include the tools and software needs to build applications on top of it. What it does is it abstracts away the machines. Machines are of course there, but everybody, if you're a science student, you must understand the word, the question of abstraction, the concept of abstraction. The concept of abstraction is that basically you extract away the machine, you don't know which machine it is running on. And platform as a service provides you that service. Let me see, there were some questions. Very rightly, Atash says that AWS EC2 is an infrastructure as a service. Exactly. EC2, when we started off, was an infrastructure as a service. Then we have come to platform as a service. Now the third thing is software as a service, which you and I are going to build, which is SaaS, which we built on platform as a service. Software as a service is a delivery of application as a service, probably the version of cloud computing that most people are used to on day-to-day basis. When you are using Facebook, you are using software as a service. When you are using Gmail, you are using software as a service. It provides you, and now we are moving towards serverless, cloud 2.0, which is serverless, which we are going to discuss later. The good thing is you are renting servers. No matter how many you need, you can rent it, and when you don't no longer need it, basically you discontinue. Shahrukh, could you summarize?
So basically, on this article, we have learned what is blockchain and decentralization server, and plus, so we have seen what a cloud and that blockchain, the difference between the cloud and the major difference we found that the blockchain is immutable. So once we place something on it, it cannot be erased or removed from it. So this is as far as concerned, we have cloud is concerned, it is immutable, so we can change our record or whatever data is on the cloud. That's the first thing. Second thing that goes on, as we said, we have three type of services: infrastructure as a service, secondly platform as a service, and a software as a service. So we have learned that in the infrastructure as a service, there is a major infrastructure on which we like the hardware and places or whatever the system we want or application we want to run on it. As far as platform as a service, we get on same hardware, but we think we got certain type of OS or certain of a layer of thing on which we can run our application and move and create in some type of system on which our system will be running. Third, we go for a SAC, which is software as a service, where just we create an application and place on certain over the past server. So we like the Gmail or Facebook or other application running is currently on the server. This is the area
Yes.
we cover this article.
Anybody else? Let me see if there are any questions.
So quite long.
Yes.
Samir.
Somebody said
Next.
API economy is a software as a service. Exactly. API economy means basically developers are buying and selling services, APIs. So therefore, it is run as a software as a service. Exactly. Somebody asked how blockchain and IoT are working together. We'll discuss it later. It's an advanced topic right now. You won't be able to understand if I go into it. Anybody else?
Can we think about blockchain as a link, as an immutable linked list, which is using hash key instead of a pointer? If we
Yes,
think
yes.
of it as a simpler.
Professor Bhai, you are right.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? And let's move forward.
Sir, may I ask question?
Yes, yes, go ahead.
Sir, right now, blockchains, a big blockchain, a network of big blockchain can't be hacked because we need 124 supercomputers for that. But we can't have in one location 124 supercomputer. But if we have a perfect quantum computer, can be hacked a blockchain means a big network like Bitcoin.
That's a good question. Nobody knows the answer to it. The thing is, blockchain is dependent on key, public-private key encryption. As we go forward, maybe quantum computing, but that's an easy solution for that, that you go to higher bits. If you are 124, they will go to 2000 bits and then 4000 bits. They'll make it difficult, and nothing is impossible. If you spend enough computing resources on a problem, and if it is solvable, it can be solved. But it will become so expensive to solve it, and so much time consumption and so much electricity, that nobody is going to be willing to do it.
Thank you.
But there's no such thing as a completely unhackable system. Anybody else? Let's move to the next thing. Now look at this diagram. Let me explain. It's a Gartner 2020 diagram. Basically, it is rating all the different services. Niche players, we are not interested in Alibaba, Oracle, IBM, and Tencent Cloud. Visionaries are three: Google, Microsoft, and they are the leaders. And AWS, because they started off, the first company who started off cloud computing, is way ahead of other companies. Microsoft is trying to catch up. Google is trying to catch up. But I suspect Microsoft is 2 years behind and Google is 4 years behind. Therefore, in this course, we are going to use AWS. They are the market leaders and visionaries. Any questions on this decision of mine? Any disagreement? Okay, let's move forward. Now the question is, as I just added this, that who is going to win this race? Right now, AWS is the king. It has about 39–40% of the market share. Azure has about 20–22%, and Google is less than that. So the thing is, AWS keeps its top spot in the global cloud market. Very difficult to beat AWS at this stage. Now we have reached cloud computing 2.0, which is serverless.
And sir,
Yes, go ahead, Anis.
sir, I want to add one more thing. Many people always worried about that if they start learning AWS, what would happen to their GCP or Google Cloud platform or Microsoft Azure platform? How would they able to get work and get some earning from this thing? The AWS is not only a market leader, is an innovative market leader. So I can see lot of even Google and Microsoft. Most of the time they follow the same standard, same things with some different name, but the logic and idea is very much same. So if you are learning AWS, it does not mean that uh, using and working with Microsoft Azure or Google Cloud platform would be Chinese for you. It would, the concept and the idea would be very much similar, because first of all, they want to make some compatibility, because they already know that developers and DevOps need to work many different things together. So they don't want to make things very much strange for the developers and DevOps. And they mostly follow the AWS ideas. That's it.
Totally agreed. Okay, now we are moving on to serverless. But before we go into serverless, let's see how we used our current systems. How did we develop our current systems? Shahrukh, let me go over it. Developers write the source code. That's how we do it right now. Ops team evaluates the performance and scalability requirements of the application and prepare a proposed infrastructure plan that will require these kind of machine and so on. The plan is shared with the cloud service provider and specific numbers of the servers are purchased. The application runs smoothly for a week before it crashes because of high memory usage. The developers and op engineers debug the issue and end up purchasing a few extra servers to distribute the load. Other issues keep occurring intermittently, and developers spend their work day debugging infrastructure issues. The ops team is under constant pressure from the financial department of the rise in cloud cost, forcing them to always look for optimization. Anish bhai, you have a lot of experience. Shahrukh bhai, you have a lot of experience, and other people might have a lot of experience. Do you agree with this 7-part? This is what we do right now.
Yes, sir. Almost all part are very genuine in nature.
This is a part of serverless, which we have to face.
Yes. Now what they are saying, with serverless computing, the developer job in speed finishes at step 1. Which was step 1 was the developer write the code, writes the source code. That's it. But who is doing the rest of the steps, 6 steps? The cloud provider automatically allocates, manages, and scales the infrastructure. No need to do infrastructure planning. No need to monitor server health checks. No need to worry about being overcharged, since automatically add or removes resources based on application demand. You can only be billed for what you use, nothing more or nothing less. The most important thing is to remember that serverless does not mean servers are not being used. They are very much are, but the usual tasks associated with all these things are hidden, and it is managed by AWS, Google, Azure, or whatever. In a serverless environment, once a developer has finished implementing business logic, they can expect the cloud provider to handle the rest. We don't care about anything else. At this stage, I just want to add, there are two kind of serverless things. Your code can run as a function, which is called function as a service, or your code can also run as a container, which is a Docker container. When we started off in serverless, there was only one thing called function as a service. But right now, it can be function as a service as well as. Now, let me summarize serverless for you. Number one advantage, which I like, is infinite scalability, almost infinite scalability. If I develop a serverless application, it can go from 0 to 100 million users easily. I don't have to worry about it. Of course, I will have to pay for it, but I don't have to worry about changing the code and everything runs smoothly. The second thing is, if in the initial days nobody is using my system, I'm not being charged. I will only be charged for the services, the resources I'm consuming. It is a miracle. And it makes our job very simple. But as I mentioned already, these systems are difficult to design. Therefore, because we have to implement the event-driven architecture, which we are going to discuss later. Not in this class, but going forward in the course. Anybody going to summarize serverless computing? Anybody? I have such intelligent students attending the class, but you guys are tired on Saturday, right? Anil bhai,
Sir, can I?
Yes, sir.
somebody else said something. Yes, go ahead.
Sir, serverless is nothing but everything. The first point in the article that the developer write the source code. Despite that, everything will be managed by a cloud provider. We don't have to worry about the server, and we don't have to worry about this scalability and nothing. Everything will be managed by cloud, and we just have to pay.
Exactly, my friend. Exactly. Very nicely said. Anish bhai, you were saying something.
No, sir. I just saying yes, sir.
Okay. 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 Let's move forward. Now look at the trends in serverless. Right now in 2020, we are now in 2021, it's an $8 billion business. It is increased by $21 billion market by 2025. Another study estimates that the serverless market grew by 3 times in 2020 compared to 2019. AWS Lambda, which is the most mature, is increasing double and triple. This growth is unsurprising given how this relative new technology is capable of reducing cost and operational complexity, results in greater efficiency of development and IT operations. So therefore, it is exploding. The only issue right now is there is a lack of standardization. AWS says that why should we standardize? We are the leader. We started this. They started cloud computing and they also started serverless. Therefore, they are not interested in standardization. that their workload will run on other servers. But the concepts are the same as Anish mentioned initially. Anybody wants to comment or questions? Let's move forward.
Sir, what is mean by standardization in cloud computing?
By standardization, I mean that, for example, if I write the function as a service, as a function, the request parameters and the responses, the method signature can be standardized, but is right now not being standardized by, I think the main culprit here is AWS because they are the leaders. So therefore, all three cloud providers have their specific way of calling a function. Not calling a function, but just how to define a function. Lambda function is separate. Yes, Asher. Yes.
So the question is, this all looks too good. What's the catch?
I'm just like you. Whenever somebody tells me that something is too good to be true, I'm also a cynical person. And in this world, you have to be a little bit cynical. The problem is lock-in. For example, if tomorrow morning somebody at AWS becomes angry at you and shut down your service, you are stuck. That is why a lot of people were proposing Kubernetes as the standardized cloud. But with the problem with Kubernetes is that it's too much management. And you have to hire DevOps guys. In serverless, just maybe a single DevOps guy will be enough. But in Kubernetes, you need a whole team to manage things.
Yes, sir. Sir, one more thing in this regard, that even they are not going to shut down your service immediately if they decided to change or add or increase the pricing. That makes something unaffordable. You have to be locked in with the cloud provider, and you cannot change. But sir, I guess that this is not a big thing, because on the other side, same things happen. For example, if I'm buying a IBM server, and I definitely need a contract with the IBM server provider to provide me anything that I'm needing after the using that server. I means if the hard disk is fails or corrupt, or memory has some issues, so I need to have some contract. And if my vendor decide not to provide me that thing, so that might be happen. So it's happen everywhere.
Yes, that's the problem. Somebody mentioned in the chat that what happens if US government puts sanctions on Pakistan? That might be a problem. But if you think about it, if they shut down our internet, then what can we do? Therefore, the only solution is that right now, our solution is that we have backbones from undersea cables as well as coming from China.
Yeah, but we have to understand this thing also, that most of our export is dependent on the North American market. So if, for example, if that is not possible, that the Chinese or the Americans in the rivalry of each other might start sanctioning other things. But for Pakistan, North American market is very critical. We, at least for Pakistanis, very, very rare things going to be happen, that your cloud infrastructure maybe sanctioned by the Pakistani government at least. And I believe that as a Pakistan is a very strategic partner of the US, so it's very rare but chances is.
The thing is, it is rare. There's a slim chance, but you cannot ignore it totally.
Yeah, that is same that for what happen if there is a earthquake that destroy all Karachi, Nauzubillah, and what happened with after some time electricity wave off or day of dome comes and this type of things. So everything can be happens, but we cannot plan with the very rare things. This is my
Agreed.
point of view.
And I totally agree with you. For example, if you start thinking that if there is a nuclear war, Holocaust, what will happen? We'll die. That's
Yeah.
it. Now, if the coronavirus mutates into a killer virus which starts killing 50% of the population, what can you do? You die. Just what
Yeah.
you can do your best. You can do vaccines and rest of the stuff. In some cases, you cannot calculate. There is a slim chance.
Nobody can plan this time. For example, we know that accidents happens, and in the accidents many people lost their lives, but nobody plan accordingly with that. Otherwise nobody would able to come out from his home.
Now let's move forward. When you are doing cloud computing, what you do is basically go to the all of us request all of you to get a AWS account as soon as possible. We are not going to be able to move forward without getting an AWS account. The details are written in the bootcamp documentation. We are going to move forward with that. Let me see, there was one chat. Okay, no, nothing important. Now, in AWS, okay, Rasool is saying I have done it. That's good. You have got the AWS account. Now, the thing is, what you do is basically log into AWS. Like you say, let me show you. I don't want to show you in detail. I just want to just say console.aws.amazon.com. I'm not going to show you even my account ID because it can be hacked. Anyway, you just go to that and log in, and your UI, you provision servers, you upload your code for serverless computing and the rest of stuff. But the problem with that is that my memory is short-term memory. If somebody after 3 months asks me how did I do it, I don't remember. There are too many things going on in my life. There are not many women in my life, but there are too many technologies in my life, Anish bhai. So therefore, the problem is that even after a week, you tell me, even after a day, you tell me to replicate what I did, it will be very difficult for me to do. And if I'm trying to debug what I did wrong, it is very difficult. I can't even remember what I did an hour back. So therefore, AWS introduced a technology where you can write down your code and give instructions. That code basically calls the APIs of AWS servers. But the problem with that is when they introduced this technology, the problem with that was that it is called infrastructure. Before giving the problem, and let me tell you the name, it is called infrastructure as code, IAC. Infrastructure as code is an IT practice that codifies and manages underlying structure as a software. Now, I love this thing. Why? I'll write my Lambda function and I'll write my infrastructure also in code and implement it. Basically, you write a script. So therefore, you write your business logic and you write your infrastructure also in code. What are the benefits of infrastructure as code? Yes, Ahmed.
Sir, does it mean that we are writing code, and by writing code we are managing infrastructure?
Yes, both. So therefore, what you are doing is basically writing code or your business logic, and also telling how many computers to provision, where to deploy this code, and all the rest of the stuff. Therefore, I become the king. Therefore, I love it. Speed and efficiency. Automatic provisioning and management are faster and more efficient than manual processing. I'll write down my code. Of course, writing down will take time. But anytime I want to deploy it, I'll just push a button and it will deploy. Consistency. Software developers can use code to provision and deploy servers or applications to business practices and policies rather than rely on system administrators and DevOps. I don't need anybody. I don't need DevOps people. I'll just create a configuration file and deploy it. Alignment with DevOps. With this infrastructure setup written as code, it can go through the same version control. You can push your infrastructure as code on GitHub and you can share with others. Therefore, now the problem is, when we started off AWS and others, there's two issues. First of all, in which language should I write infrastructure? A lot of companies were using YAML, and there is a company which came up for multi-cloud, which was Terraform, which was basically supporting all three clouds. Terraform was supporting all three clouds, AWS, Google, and Azure. You can write in the YAML, or it was not YAML, but some language I just forgot. And basically it used to support. But I don't want to learn another language. I am writing Lambda function in TypeScript. I want to write my infrastructure also in TypeScript. If I'm using Python, I also want to write my infrastructure in Python. I don't want to learn another language because it confuses me. So therefore, AWS has created a new thing last year, 2 years back, which is called CDK, Cloud Development Kit, CDK. Before that, they were using AWS Cloud Formation, which had this kind of syntax. See this. This is a cloud formation language. I don't like it. The key value page, it gives me too much, and it is a huge file, it becomes too much. I can't compile it. So therefore, AWS Cloud Formation, now we are going to use CDK. Initially, I thought about using Terraform, but I don't like Terraform also because of this thing. They have these YAML kind of files, which are very difficult to write and maintain, huge files. The good thing about CDK is that you write in the same language as. Now there's a problem. Any questions? The problem is in CDK, right, initially only supported AWS and Terraform supporting all the other clouds. Now, the good thing is, now previously this was the question. Should I use CDK or should I use Terraform?
Sir, I would prefer using CDK
Why?
because I prefer programming, so I can connect with my own software, and I could add code as a program, and that code would scale up, scale down, or start or stop certain things on the cloud from my programming code. While I guess in the Terraform, I has to need something like YAML that could be good for DevOps, but I guess for the software developer, people would prefer using CDK because you can use a program of a programming language of your choice without going towards learning Terraform.
Somebody asked me a question that somebody who's just starting off, should they go to AWS 2021 courses or start from here? You can start from here. Don't have to go to 2020 bootcamp after 12 projects. You can start directly here. Okay, now move forward. So therefore, I also love CDK. But now the question has become mute. Why? Terraform realizing that this can be a huge problem and that a small company compared to AWS, they have built CDK Terraform on top of Terraform. So therefore, it is early stages of deployment. It is not, but now you can use TypeScript, Python, Java, C# or Go. Therefore, other companies have started adopting. This is going to become an industry standard, CDK. Anytime you want to do cloud computing, you will use CDK going forward. Now, some people might say, sir, I'm not a cloud. I don't believe in serverless. I believe in Kubernetes. I want to deploy my own cloud. Look at this. CDK for Kubernetes. CDK everywhere. So therefore, introduction to CDK for Kubernetes basically tells you that you can use the same concepts as CDK 8S. This is what being called. Look at this. You're using TypeScript. In YAML, it used to be like this. I don't like YAML. Let's move forward. We have already covered this, covered this, covered this. No. Let's open these two articles. We are end of the class, and we need a few minutes more only. Therefore, we have decided on AWS CDK because it is being supported by Terraform, and through Terraform, you can also use with Azure and also use with Google Cloud. Going forward, I believe CDK is going to become the default mechanism for writing infrastructure as code. Now, I'm not going to go into detail too much today, but just to get you started, what are the benefits of CDK? Enable easier cloud onboarding. You already know Python. You already know TypeScript. We are going to use TypeScript in this class, but you already know TypeScript. Therefore, it is easier. You don't have to use YAML or whatever. Accelerates the development process because you can use the ID of your choice. You can, the best thing I like about CDK is you can build your own components, just like the client-side components in React or Angular. You can develop your server-side components in CDK. And you can reuse it, customize it, and reuse it. Leverage the full power of programming language. Performs type checking, especially in CDK, in TypeScript. The only downside is that it is developing. There is version 1 and there is version 2. We are going to start off with version 1 of the CDK, and slowly we are going to move towards version 2. AWS CDK is a cost-first approach to define a cloud application infrastructure. Since that launch follows the early release often philosophy. You can deploy 20 times a day. Right now, we are about to release a Operation Unicorn website in 2 days. We are deploying it every half an hour, 2 hours to test it. Now, this is where we going to get started. Just to summarize, just to explain this picture, and then we are going to finish off this class. AWS CDK application, you start with, you have stacks. In stacks, you have constructs, which are written in TypeScript and or other programming language. Anybody, any questions? They've asked an irrelevant question which does not belong here. Any other question? Okay. For next class, we are going to basically start CDK, which is infrastructure as code tool, and start provisioning cloud services. Anis and Shahrukh and others, please do your homework and get ready for the next class. Before we move on, any other question?
Nothing, sir. We will start right from the cloud development kit documentation, and then we will proceed. That's it.
Okay, what they are saying is that CDK is going to be, the thing is, I'm planning a new syllabus, which is cloud, which is certified unicorn developer. It is going to start off with introduction to API economy, the token economy, and rest of the stuff which we already covered. In the real life, because this is bootcamp, we are going to cover first quarter TypeScript. In the second quarter, we are going to start with CDK and cloud computing, and then we are going to move to blockchain and then AI and rest of the stuff. Somebody asked, is Zishan Anim going to join the team? He is part of the team. Right now, he's doing research on API economy and token economy.
Are we going to cover all specializations of Operation Unicorn in this bootcamp, or we are going to focus on one or two?
Let's see, Faisal. Maybe you are going to teach some of them.
Inshallah.
Because I can't be expert in everything. But let's move forward. We'll see. in due course of time, it is evolving. Any other thing? Okay, guys, thank you, everybody. This is going to be, you have to understand something. Things are not in my control. As COVID-19 is not in my control, the technology progression is also not in my control. Things are moving very fast. We have to basically retool ourselves for the post-COVID-19 environment. It is already there. They have basically vaccinated the entire population, more or less 60-70% at this stage, and soon they'll reach 90%. So therefore, unless a new variant comes up, they are already in the post-environment, post-COVID-19 world. We are still stuck here because we have basically vaccinated not a major chunk of our population. Hopefully we'll do it, and we'll also move towards post-COVID-19 world.
Yeah, before
Yes.
you are leaving, I want to let you know that we have also a Discord server with the name of Penacloud. So I'm sharing its invite to the chat window. So you can join that server. And if you have any question, if you want to raise your along one-to-one discussion, some sort of things, so you may join that Penacloud server. I'm sharing its link to the chat window. So you can join that Discord server, and there's a lot of channels exist. For example, there is a channel, a special channel dedicated in Penacloud for Bootcamp 2021. So you can ask questions. Sir Zia, I guess, has already created some other channels too. So you can also, for example, there is a blockchain channel, there is a Operation Unicorn channel. You can join anywhere. So the channel of our concern is a Bootcamp 2021. So whenever you join, if you have any problem, please let us know. I'm sharing both channel invite and also the server invite, and you can check your you can check the chat.
Okay.
So
Yes.
okay.
I just wanted to add some, Anish, I just wanted to add, there's some confusion because now we have 3 brands. One is PIAIC.
Yeah.
The other one is going to be launched soon is Operation Unicorn, and the third one is Penacloud. We have 3 brands, different brands, and people get confused. Okay, what are the requirements of each? The thing is, all 3 are run by Beam. PIIC was a standardized program which main focus was to educate technology, and it is going to continue. The second thing is Penacloud is a for-profit company. PIIC was not a profit company. And NGOs were basically running this. Celani was basically responsible for the financial aspect of it. And we were the technical consultants for it and the teaching and on the rest of the stuff. Therefore, Operation Unicorn is about starting startups. Main focus is on startups. So therefore, PIIC students, when they qualify, they will join Operation Unicorn to start startups. But in the meanwhile, the technology has gained on us. So with this certified unicorn developer, we are trying to catch up. So therefore, Penacloud is a for-profit brand. When I make my money, we buy the sofa and I feed myself. I'm already fat. I eat too much. So therefore, that money comes from Operation Penacloud. The second thing is Operation Unicorn. It is not for profit movement where anybody can join. This is a not profit thing, which is basically for PIIC and other students to start their startups. So therefore, they are the 3 brands. Anish, you understand the difference between 3 brands?
Of course, sir, I can understand. One is the beginners technology platform. It's a PIIC where we teach AI and IoT and different things. While at Penacloud, we try to provide advanced learning, emerging learning, and emerging things. And Penacloud is also a platform where people could join it as a worker and be a developer as a part of it. That's it. That's my point of view, I guess. Am I right?
Yes, exactly. And the thing is, we are developing a platform in Penacloud, which is going to help Operation Unicorn as well. But that is right now in stealth mode. Therefore, I cannot discuss it right now. But the thing is, on Monday, Operation Unicorn website will be up. And I'll share it with everybody. And Bootcamp 2021 is a part of Operation Unicorn. It is a non-profit. This is my time. I'm donating it. Anis is donating it. Inam Bhai is donating it. Shahrukh is. All the teachers are donating their time. We are not charging anything. And this is our saying to our God, thank you so much for all your things you have provided to us, and thanking all our countrymen. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye. See you guys later next week.
Thank you. Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz.